All right, welcome everybody to the Friday the 13th edition, Friday, June 13th, 2025, Legal Tech Week, the show where we talk about top stories of the week in legal tech and innovation. And I'm Bob Ambrogi, and I write a blog called Law Sites and have a blog called Law Next. And our panelists this week, with possibly more to come, we're not sure, are, as you see before us. Nikki, you want to kick off the intros today?
Sure, since I forgot to mute myself. Yeah, my name is Nikki Black, and I am the Principal Legal Insight Strategist at Affinipay, parent company of My Case, LawPay, DocketWise, and CasePeer. I write legal tech columns for ABA Journal, Above the Law, and the Daily Record, and um, I will mute myself this time. So
You're not going to go all Nicole on us now, are you? Is that
no,
what's going to
that
happen?
was I don't know why I started. I think I'm out of practice. I've been out of the
All
loop.
right, all
So.
right. Should I say Vic? Vic Lee? Do you ever call yourself Vic?
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people will call me Vic Lee, and it seems like it's a little. I don't necessarily like the one syllable thing, so I don't know. Victor Lee, I am assistant managing editor for the ABA Journal, focusing on business of law and technology.
But if you're like an action hero or something, I think Vic Lee, or you could be like I don't know, something in a movie or something. Vic Lee.
Or if I had the three names, I could be like a serial killer. So,
Uh, yeah. All right, Joe.
I'm Joseph Patrice. I am with Above the Law and Thinking Like a Lawyer podcast. Before we came on the air, I was explaining I'm a little out of it. I was at David Latt, who was one of the original editors at Above the Law, his birthday party yesterday, and it was yeah, I might have drank too much. I don't know. It got pretty ugly. But like to give you a sense of how bad legal tech is going as an industry, I saw the former editor of Legal Tech News there taking as the photographer. So sometimes not here. It would have been funnier if she'd come, but
Yeah,
a little later. Yeah, no,
maybe
she
maybe
was the
maybe she'll
official
stagger
photographer.
in later.
Yeah.
All right. And Steve?
Well, since we're all going formal today, I'm
Steven?
Stephen Embry. I write the blog Tech Law Crossroads, and I was not at the party last night, and I did not drink too much last night, so I'm chipper today
Yeah,
for a change.
yeah. Well, if David Horgan were here, he'd be calling you Counselor Embry. So at least
Uh,
Stephen doesn't sound too formalistic.
uh,
But yeah, I'm sorry I missed David's birthday party. Was that fun? Was it a good thing?
Yeah, it was wild. They had the Harvard Club, and it was a giant. I mean, it was like a wedding, and I was at his wedding, and it was like a wedding. Like carving stations and
Wow.
drinks, and yeah, no, it was quite the event. It was great. A lot of people were there, especially from above law history, but also like legal luminaries were there, like some fairly big partners that you would all know from firms. So it was a lot of fun to chat with people.
A lot of was the overall political bent more Republican than Democrat, or was it?
Even though he does obviously have a lot of Federalist Society ties, but like George Conway was there and he's of the Federalist Society, but right now I don't think he considers himself much their person. So it was that kind of a crowd.
Uh, Julie just texted she can't make it. Okay. Uh, she's at a journalism awards gala. Okay.
I won an award.
You
Ah,
did recently?
no, oh no, I said I wanted an award, but actually now that you mention it, I did win one in the winter. But I meant like I want an award. Yeah,
Oh, okay. All right.
yeah.
Um,
Come on, Canada.
all right. Well, I'm kind of sorry Stephanie wasn't here because I kind of wanted to. I felt like I wanted to talk about this Zach Abramowitz thing this week. I don't know if you guys read it, where he kind of declared Harvey the winner, which raises for me all sorts of questions like winner of what and what does that mean? I love Zach, and I think he's really smart and perceptive a lot of times. But so he does. Zach Abramowitz does this Substack, I think it is, called Legally Disrupted. I mean, Zach is a sort of a consultant and former Above the Law writer, right? I think, or does he still write for Above the Law? He
I
did
think
for a
off
while.
and on he doesn't write a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah. Um, but he did this thing called this post called "Has Harvey Already Won?" In which he wrote um, just let's see, where was the opening paragraph, which it's actually a long piece, but the opening paragraph kind of sums it up, where he says, ladies and gentlemen of the legally disrupted jury, the case for Harvey is pretty simple. A pair of elite founders with unique experience have executed at an unprecedented speed and scale. They show no signs of slowing down, and their lead is insurmountable. And he goes on to talk about what brilliant marketers they've been and brand ambassadors, and how they've got this product that's penetrated in a lot of large law firms. And it kind of makes the argument that again that they've won, and I got reinterested in it because we were all chatting a little bit about it on our own Slack channel, and then I was at Reddit has a legal tech subreddit. It came, somebody brought it up there saying, "What do people think?" And I think most people seem to think it was a little bit of an exaggeration. But again, I think my first comment really was like, what does it even mean to say they won? Because I read somewhere that Harvey has like 28 of the AmLaw 100 as customers. And somebody cited that fact to show, well, that shows how successful they are. But when we were at that Thomson Reuters thing a few weeks ago, they said they have 80% of the AmLaw 100 for co-counsel as customers. Uh,
Mhm.
who knows? There's no way to verify all of these numbers, but does that mean co-counsel has won, or has Harvey won, or is nobody using any of these darn things? Um, and and I mean, isn't it? I guess part of it for me is it starts to seem a little ludicrous to suggest anybody could possibly be the winner at this point in the development of this technology. I think Harvey had, sort of a little bit of the Malcolm Gladwell right place, right time thing going on in terms of getting getting out there early on in the development of this stuff. But I think there's never going to be any one dominant, clear winner in this space, and even if there were to be, I think we're a few years away from seeing who that might be. I think we're still, as they say, in the early innings here in terms of evolution of this technology. But I don't know. Did anybody else have any thoughts on it, or am I just incensed over nothing?
Well,
So,
in the comments, they said that they thought it was so over the top that it was almost sarcasm. And I actually kind of agree with that. Like because he starts out saying, "Oh, it's over," blah blah, and then he has a meme of Dennis Green. No, wasn't it Dennis Green? Dennis Green, right? Yeah. And he says, "I'm not ready to crown them." So it's
Round
so
them.
much like so there's so much like kind of double talk and so much. I yeah, I do wonder how much of it was tongue in cheek and how much of it was sincere. And that's the problem sometimes. It's like, it's hard to tell. Especially if you're not, if the tone isn't clear, or if you kind of, say different things throughout the case, because then he makes a case against them too. So I actually kind of thought the whole thing was kind of a weird, just yeah, just hard to follow. But I can see why people thought it was sarcastic.
Well, Brian in the chat over here is making some great points, which is, as a
The chat
user,
over here or the chat over
yeah,
here?
chat over here
That one,
and
that
on
one.
my screen. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, for those of you listening to this, not watching it live, we have a chat. So that's why you should watch it live so you can see the chat. But he's explaining that as a user, he finds the Harveys way ahead of everything else that they're using, and I think that's as far as the who won. I think a lot of the AmLaw 100 are probably playing around with everything. So 80%, 20%, like there's a lot of overlap, I think, and he's saying that as a user, Harvey seems ahead, which I got to take that word for it because, as we've commented several times on this show, Harvey's not particularly open with what they're doing. While we get to sit down and play with some of these other offerings, they just kind of they've been kind of a closed book for a long time. Uh, but I agree with you that I don't see wait with everything. I thought the piece was a little over the top, but also that's his style. But so I'm not gonna fault Zach his style. I have a style too. I get it. But also, I agree that like we can't tell who's won, especially because put aside what these companies are doing, the engines underneath everything are still being evolving constantly. And so, yeah, until we get to the point where they run into a brick wall, which I think might be coming soon, barring as we talked about, barring some other like development of fusion power or something. We're not going to know who wins.
I don't think there's a winner or a loser. I don't think that you can say someone won generative AI in legal. Generative AI is soon going to be like, what, how you can't say someone won the cloud in legal? It's a technology that all the companies are rolling out into their software, and there's no winners or losers in legal software right now. I mean, what does that even mean? Law firms are, depending on their practice area, depending on their size, depending on even their geographic region, have all different types of software in place. And the software that they use is going to be infused with generative AI. And at that point, it's just a technology that's available that everybody uses. And there's no winners or losers in legal. I think that's an asinine thing to even say. I
Yeah,
hope it was sarcastic. And I, it's just going to become ubiquitous. There's no winners or losers in it.
that's a good. I think that's right, Nick. I mean, it's like trying to compare what NetDocs does with what VLEX does. I mean, they're just different tools for different things, and it's hard to say, oh well, VLEX is one over NetDocs when they do different things.
But I think we can say that word perfect lost.
Yeah.
We're on board with that at this
Yeah.
point.
But that's word
Yeah,
Well,
like
well, no,
process.
and there are ways to
Still have
determine who's a
moments
loser,
when
right?
I
Because
miss
I
it
mean,
though.
VHS beat Beta, right? Beta was a loser. Like
BlackBerry.
yeah, BlackBerry, yeah, or well, and both of was it digital DVDs and digital. What was the other one? Digital. I don't even remember I don't even remember the.
HD DVD
That's
Yeah,
was
standalone
they
yeah.
both
Oh,
lost.
the Palm Pilot is that?
That's standalone tech that doesn't integrate with all the other tech, and that's completely different. I just don't think they're analogous. I don't think there's going to be a winner in the legal generative AI because it's uh, space, because it's going to be rolled into all the products that lawyers are already using.
Yeah, it
That's
looks like if I'm reading O's link to his skills survey here, and it looks like if I'm reading that right, that in fact Harvey is slightly ahead of co-counsel in terms of actual live deployment as of I think this is March. He said 2025, but again, I don't know what that really means. I think Zach's article was 100% serious. And as a matter of fact, Zach was in this Reddit thread to some extent, responding to some of the remarks about his article, which he seemed to be, he wasn't treating it like it was a joke. He was treating it like he was dead serious about it. So I don't know. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, I don't know. It is funny, partly because it's interesting here, and like I said, Joe, from Brian in the chat, because there are still so few people that you talk to who ever use the darn thing, and uh, there is more. I don't know. I do, for some reason, talk to more people who are using co-counsel. Although, again, it might just be the ubiquity of Thomson Reuters or something like that's causing that to happen. But who knows?
Maybe that adds to the mystique a little bit, right? Because it's always like there's that unknown factor of like, okay, well, this could be everything that if it's everything that we think it is, and as good as we think it is, like, well, we're not going to be able to have any firsthand knowledge to refute that, right? I mean, it could be the greatest thing since sliced bread. We wouldn't know.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah. I think it really just comes down to, for me, this idea of trying to portray this as a winning, because it's a competition, and it's like the contract management space, or you can look at it. Yeah, well, a few years ago, we were all talking about who's going to win the contract management lifestyle battle. And not that we thought any one company was going to come out on top there, but there certainly did seem to be some that were fairly dominant, and others that were coming in as startups and trying to get into that space. Uh, I don't know that, all these years later, you can say that anybody's won that space. There's still some companies that are definitely probably have a lot more customers than others, but there are no clear winners and no clear losers in that space, I don't think.
I still think though that generative AI is different than practice management software, contract management software, document management software, legal research software even. It's not like any of those things. It is not a specific kind of software. It's it's an entity in and of itself. I mean, I think it's more akin to like the cloud, honestly, even though the cloud is completely different, but it's this thing that can drive all these other platforms, all these, integrates and it allows everything to be used differently and it allows the output to be different and it speeds things up and it can be used as, and I'm not convinced that these major chatbots like Claude and ChatGPT aren't going to, I mean, they're already rolling out the enterprise versions and stuff. And I'm not convinced that they're not going to ultimately be a lot better, which is, I think you had alluded to that. Someone else had, Bob, I think it was you, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to be a lot better at the end of the day. And that's what everyone's going to end up using. Sometimes legal creates stuff that is legal specific and it doesn't necessarily need to be, other than it needs to integrate with the tools everybody else is already using in their firms that's legal specific and where their data is controlled and secure.
But I also I agree with that to some extent. But there's also something to be said for with the cloud. There is a winner. There are winners in the cloud, and it's AWS and Microsoft, right? Like at the end of the day, somebody at a certain point you have to choose the thing that runs your whatever it is. And even though it's kind of a broad technology as far as we interface with it, AWS is where all those servers are.
But those legal cloud ones didn't win out. The ones that were like, we offer you a legal specific secure cloud, other than the platforms that are based on it.
Oh
But
yeah,
there were companies that offered the ability to uh, be cloud hosting servers specific for legal and legal
yep,
tools, and those didn't win in legal, those broad
yeah,
categories. So that's what I mean. I don't think this is a legal specific
yeah.
tool in any way, shape, or
No,
form. Or Harvey.
I think that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, I was just going to say I think that's absolutely right. Yeah. And you kind of see it with the people who are saying, we had a conversation in our side Slack that we all talk about. The people who were saying that they're increasingly hearing from folks that sometimes just going to normal chat GPT is producing better results for legal than some of these legal specific ones, which I don't recommend for a lot of reasons, for danger reasons, but it does suggest what Nikki's talking about. The future could well be much like cloud was, where the big not legal specific corporations eventually come in and crush.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so perhaps somewhat relevant to this is we have two different stories this week that are surveys on
Mhm.
lawyers relating to lawyers' adoption of AI. And maybe one of the reasons nobody's won yet is because there's still a lot of lawyers still not even
Mhm.
using the stuff. But maybe Nikki, we could start with yours, and then Steve's got a relevant related one that he can talk about.
Well, mine was based on uh, why am I having a mind blank? What's their name? Intap, Intap's survey, and it was the technology perceptions report, which was which was not just about lawyers, it was legal professionals. There was another one, I think Thomson Reuters did one that was like that as well recently. But what was so striking about this Intap one was that these the people that basically invented spreadsheets of all things were like leaps and bounds ahead of us. Like accountants are like kicking our asses when it comes to perception and adoption of generative AI. And so I mean that just was really disheartening for me because accountants, I don't know if you know many accountants, but they're not exactly the most innovative, groundbreaking types of folks out there. So I was pretty
Congratulate,
surprised myself.
congratulations, accountants. You're the sort of people that legal tech folks make fun of. There you go.
Right? But, and mind you, I mean, I don't mean to diss accountants by, they play an important role. My company provides, now my company, the company I work for, provides, payment processing tools for them. I don't mean to diss accountants by any means, but, of all
The
people,
FinPay executive trashes accounting profession. I don't know.
Nikki just got audited, is what I heard.
but I'm like, all the people that run circles around us, it's like, come on. Like they're equally regulated, you know what I mean? So it's not just a regulation issue that's we seem to claim that's what's holding us back, or that's what most lawyers say is holding them back. But I don't think that's all it is. And I wonder, as I'm thinking about this out loud, accountants, people will talk about how analogize generative AI to spreadsheets and accountants, and how accountants are, thought they're going to be wiped out by spreadsheets, but it just opened up new avenues and allowed them to pay more attention to the interesting stuff. So I wonder if maybe because they've already been through that threat and they've crossed the threshold and survived on the other side of a threat like that, maybe they're less willing to dig their heels in and refuse to use new tech because they're pretty sure they're still going to survive. Whereas lawyers feel really attacked and nothing else has really threatened their ability to exist in quite the same way. So I wonder if maybe that has something to do with it. That didn't occur to me until just now, but I don't know. But it was
Well,
interesting.
last week or 2 weeks ago, last week I think we were talking about that Thomson Reuters release of CoCounsel. What did they do? They released it for accountants, not for lawyers. The lawyers one is coming out later, but they got the accountants one out there already. So I don't know. Maybe those accountants are kind of cutting edge on this stuff.
Yeah, no, see, actually, yeah, I never heard because like I've actually heard the opposite that especially I mean maybe not the smaller accounting firms, but the big ones, they're actually pretty far ahead. They are pretty far ahead of lawyers and law firms, and that's the way it's been for a long. And actually, I don't remember who pointed. I think it was one of those conferences that we all went to, but someone gave a presentation on this where it was like a lot of the changes that the legal industry are looking or are considering like regulatory wise and whatnot. Accounting firms went through that like way before, like right before law firms and legal entities started even considering it. So in a lot of ways, they're sort of the guinea pig for law firms. So there is an argument to be made that like that for lawyers and law firms and whatnot, like if they just see what's happened to accounting firms over the last couple of decades, that's might be what they'd be looking at in the next couple of decades for themselves. And look, there's a reason why people like why lawyers are concerned about accounting firms like Deloitte and PwC and those firms, right? I mean, it's not because they're you know it's not just because they're good at their jobs. They're worried about threats to their livelihood.
Yeah, so you have to think of, particularly with the big accounting firms, it's maybe a little bit of a misnomer to think of them as technically as accountants with the little window shade on, sitting there doing audits and all that. I mean, they're so big into business services and business advice and even semi-legal advice from a business perspective that it's that's a little different, and that's a little different than what a lot of the smaller accounting firms do, which is a lot of audit kind of stuff, which is not terribly imaginative stuff. I don't think. I've never done it. Sounds pretty boring to me.
I should also just clarify my comment on co-counsel because I see I'm not sure from Jennifer's comment in the chat whether I was confusing, but not that co-counsel hasn't rolled out to legal, which co-counsel was developed for legal in the first place, but they announced last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, they announced this new agentic version of co-counsel, sort of the next generation of co-counsel, which their first iteration of it was to roll it out for accountants and finance professionals, and then they will be sometime this summer bringing out the legal version of it. But yeah, there's definitely co-counsel for legal. Yeah, as for accountants, I happen to rent my office space out of a suite of accountants here, and there's no AI going on here, I'll tell you that. But
That's what I was
Oh,
gonna say.
oh, wait. Are you
That's
free to talk?
forward.
Are you free to have this conversation? Blink twice if you are.
All right. Okay. So there's that survey on kind of lawyers versus other vertical professionals. But then Steve, you've got another nuance to the whole AI
Yeah.
adoption.
Yeah, it was an interesting survey done by Ironclad, which is the contract management provider. And one of the interesting things about the numbers, some of the numbers, at least I've not read the survey, I just read the article that Benjamin Joyner did. But a lot of times with these surveys, you read them and you look at the results and you say, well, see, like they want to show that everybody's using AI, so that means they'll buy their product, kind of thing. The kind of discrepancies in some of these numbers that he reported sort of suggested that that was not the direction necessarily that Ironclad was going, that maybe there was a little bit more validity. But so what Ironclad did is they surveyed 800 legal professionals. Half of them worked in law firms and half of them worked in in-house legal departments, and then compared some of the results. And some of the and they were surprising in a way. So 55% of the legal professionals in law firms were using artificial intelligence for their work, but 81% of the legal professionals in in-house legal departments were using artificial intelligence for their work. And one of the people at Ironclad, and maybe it was the CEO or general counsel, was opining that the reason for that discrepancy may be for in-house legal that they work for entities that are using artificial intelligence across the enterprise for various and sundry tasks, and so perhaps easier to incorporate that. One of the other interesting things that was a discrepancy. Uh, In-house legal, 67% of them reported that they had actual guidelines for the use of artificial intelligence in their work. When we went to law firms, it was only 48%, um, which surprised me. I thought, I thought it would be much higher in that on both counts, which may explain why we see lawyers reporting hallucinated cases still. But so that was surprising. 55% of the in-house legal professionals said that they think artificial intelligence will create more job opportunities. And that's kind of consistent with some of the other surveys that came out, because I think in-house legal are seeing that there'll be maybe more cases, at least on a litigation standpoint, filed as a result of artificial intelligence. On the other hand, only 37% of the professionals in law firms thought artificial intelligence would create additional job opportunities. So there's just a lot of kind of interesting stuff looking at the difference in how artificial intelligence is being used and how it's being thought of um, between law firms and in-house legal. And, I guess it would suggest to me at some point, if not already, in-house legal departments are going to be much more demanding about the use of their law firms' use of artificial intelligence. Although I'm not sure we've seen that quite yet. Mm. But that's, when you talk about tools that are going to reduce the billable hours, law firms are not going to be too quick to incorporate those until clients demand it. So I guess remains to be seen. But that was an interesting survey, and it didn't really touch on stuff that you would. It wasn't like how many of you are using contract management tools. Oh, it's so great! Look at this. It's almost 100%. So you better get out there and buy some. I didn't get that sense from reading the article. Maybe even read the entire report, it would be. But um, so I thought it was an interesting article, interesting survey.
Does anyone think we should all get out of the business of writing about tech and get into the survey taking business? Because it's like the numbers of surveys that are being taken. I mean, there literally isn't a week that goes by without
A
us
day,
getting
a
some
week,
announcement.
a
Well, I
day.
was gonna say, I mean,
Well,
a couple a
as long
week.
as we're not concerned with like statistical models and like representative samples and that kind of stuff, yeah, why not?
But we could take a survey right now. There's
We
five
can
of
take a
us, and let's
survey
see
right
what
now.
20%. Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
like
you can put
the
that.
new PR marketing thing for companies just to take one of these
Yeah.
surveys. Some legal tech company is putting out a survey, like you say, maybe almost every day. Certain, but that's what I mean. It's not an exaggeration to say every week.
Yeah,
And
and that's a good point, Bob, because you really have to think about how these surveys are done. I mean, I get requests to do a survey up on anything and every. I mean, I can't, go to the local restaurant and order a beer without getting an email that said, "Would you fill out this survey?" And I'd toss them. I mean, I never do them. So you have to sort of think, okay, so they surveyed 800 people. Um, what were the people like that really answered the survey? Because, most of the people that get surveys don't answer, particularly people that are busy. So I don't know what it says,
Well,
but
you
you're right.
right,
incentivize it, right? Like we offered, a certain number. I can't remember. It was like 25 people could win. I don't know, Amazon gift certificates. Can't remember how much it was, but you incentivize it so they get entered in a drawing to win something. So that helps. People are often willing to, and I think they want to help. I mean, we certainly emailed way more people than the 2,800 for our that responded to our survey. But I mean, there's good reason that these are there's so many surveys out there. It's a combination of what you suggested, Bob, which is that I think it's sort of part of almost like a PE playbook or something. It's like comes from like BCG or something, one of those consulting companies. Like these are the things you do to bring in, eyes and all this
yeah,
stuff. And so everybody's doing that. But also, like, it works. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're reading them and people include the data and slides. If you have a good survey with person who writes it that people know, they'll start including the data and slides that the experts in the industry, people include it in their articles. It provides legitimacy. It provides customers and potential customers with benchmarks and data to help them make decisions in their practice. So they are really valuable, but it does feel like more and more companies are doing them. But then again, I think that may be a symptom of more and more investment in the space and more boards and advisors, that are telling these companies what they should and shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean? And I think it's a
Yeah.
symptom of corporate
That's,
growth.
yeah, I mean, it's the best, sort of the best tool that there is for finding out stuff like that. I mean, what else are you going to do? I mean, is it perfect? No, but it is. The only thing I think about is sometimes is the people that that write the question. You know, do they consciously or subconsciously write the question in a way to try to get the answer that they want? And I don't think that's true of your organization, Nikki, but I think it could be true of some.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
for sure, there's ways of, I think, push people in certain directions, but I mean, my motivation, I draft all of our questions and I write the survey, and my motivation is truly just to understand trends and find interesting things to write about and try and get a little bit of insight into what's happening. And I like to read other people's surveys too, because that's how you really get a sense of pattern recognition across all these surveys and what really is happening in our profession.
Yeah, I thought it was
yeah,
interesting how because like I guess it said that 69% use AI tools overall, and that's actually a drop. So that would seem to run
Yeah.
against what most of the other surveys that we've seen where it shows like it's actually on the increase. And I
Mm.
wonder if this because it says it maybe there's a lot of organizations moving from initial experiment phases to like more targeted. So I wonder if they're actually right on the
Right.
mark here because because it makes sense to me that okay, well when they're first playing around with it and trying to figure out what they're gonna use it for, they're gonna say, oh yeah, we use it. But then now that they're being a little more discerning with it, now I wonder if this actually does represent a more accurate picture of how lawyers are using AI as opposed to some of the other surveys which all pretty much say that it's increasing.
yeah,
Ours
Yeah,
showed a
I
decrease.
read that too, Victor. And as I was reading, I thought, could it also be that some people are now using AI, but don't really think of it as AI anymore? That it's just a part of the workflow. It's just what we do. I thought that was an interesting drop in statistics, a drop in
yeah,
numbers.
Ours showed an increase in the individual, but just a 4%, but a decrease, I think it was a 3% decrease in firm-wide usage. And my hypothesis was they are experimenting, and now they're really rolling out policies, and they're pulling it back a little and experimenting with different or trying out different products before they actually roll it out carefully across the whole firm. And there's more like people are just using it on the sly without authorization, I think. because their firms don't have AI policies or don't have AI in place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to dish the value of these surveys so much as the it's frankly just more the extreme frequency with which they're getting done. I mean, I've been in legal publishing for more years than I care to remember, and this is a one of those old tricks that people have been doing for years. But the frequency and the similarity of the topic. I mean, they're all around Gen AI these days, and so I think that's what kind of jumps out. And it would be fun to do more comparative. And Nikki, I know you did a story, and I also did a story at one point where we kind of took several different. Actually, I cheated. I used ChatGPT, but I took several different surveys and just asked it to compare. How are they alike? How are they different when they're on the same topic? I think it's interesting if you can kind of take these different surveys and then accumulate and compare them, because then you start to really see where there is pattern agreement or not. And I thought, interestingly, on the ones that I compared, which is Nikki's survey and some others of kind of law practice management, that they were pretty much consistent in rates of adoption of AI and some of the more frequent uses of AI. So there were clear patterns and consistency across several of these surveys, and then there were a couple that deviated. But um, you know, I think that does tell you something. But
I love surveys. People should do them. It's great. It's from my perspective, trying to write about this from my perch where I'm not just doing legal tech. The surveys are great. They're always good content. There's always something to learn from them. There's the more surveys there are, the better the sense of the world we get. As far as push polling, that's another good reason to have more surveys, because a bad survey, gets drowned out when there are more good surveys. So keep doing surveys, keep sending them to me. I will keep writing about
they always get well read. Anytime I do a post about a survey, it always gets well read. So I don't know why that is, but
For all those
um,
of you listening today, the Legal Tech Journalist Roundtable survey will be coming to your email mailbox in a short.
yeah.
and
Which
your
of us is your
and your
favorite panelist on a scale of?
and to incentivize you, the incentive will be, you get a free drink with Joe at the next legal conference.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not paying for Amazon cards for people. Sorry.
Uh, we might be able to do something there. We've got this we got this ton of gift cards. Our Law Next people have this like ton of gift cards we can give out. Um, so that I think one of the questions those surveys maybe points to is what are the skills it takes to be a lawyer these days? And certainly in terms of some of the skills around tech and AI, but beyond that as well. And Victor, you've got something on that.
Yeah, speaking of surveys, so well, I mean, and I struggled whether to put this one in or not, because it's like they aren't reporting any results. It's just to publicize the survey. But then I thought, based on what we were talking about, and also just with what they're covering, it might be interesting to see what comes of this, just because it's talking about what kind of lawyering skills will be needed as artificial intelligence and new technologies change the legal profession. And it's by the Institute for the Advancement of the American Legal System. So and the Law School Admission Council. So pretty big, two pretty big players. So my hope is that they'll put some good questions out there. Survey a good cross section of the legal industry, and then come up with some good stuff for us to talk about. So yeah, so for all you people out there watching, or anyone who might know anybody who might be in a position to answer the survey, because we want to know.
So did I understand this is a redo of a survey, an updating of a survey that was done, I don't know, I forget what year it was, but 2004 or 14 or something like that, in
2014. Yeah,
2014.
yeah.
And so is the idea to say how has that changed since then, or what are the skills today versus in 2014?
Yeah, I mean, I got the impression just reading it is that it's mainly driven by AI. Talking about what kind of competencies are going to be needed from lawyers, law grads as they enter as they enter into a profession that that people expect will be, if not dominated by AI, it will be significantly influenced by AI, or that would be a significant portion of what they would be expected to have as their core competency as they move forward with their practice. So yeah, my understanding is that it's mainly AI that's driving the the issuing of this survey, but it might have just been that they wanted to get another, take a snapshot. I mean, every 10 years is a decent time span for for an update. So either way, it'll be interesting to see what comes of this. I mean, because we talk about this in the show all the time, like what kind of skills are lawyers going to have now that AI, as AI becomes more ubiquitous. Like, is it, or are they going to? Is it going to affect them? Is it going to affect how they learn in law school? Is it going to affect how they practice? So it'll be interesting to kind of see what comes of this, and hopefully, I mean, my hope is that they'll get some good information for us. If
I
not,
think
we
that
can
one,
we can criticize them on the show.
I think that one skill that AI will never replace is the ability to write a thoughtful and in-depth law review article.
Interesting. Well done. Uh, I am pretty sure it can, but well, not an interesting one, but it can. But which of them are really interesting? So this was an interesting story, though. So Texas A&M has a law journal that was approached by a law professor and informatics professor from another university who pitched them on the idea of having an AI written law review, and they said, "Okay, let's do it as an experiment." And so they had full article, full, I think four, maybe five, I can't remember, uh, article law review that was written with AI. The law professor was involved and did their part, editing, whatever, but the AI generated it in a lot of ways. And the interesting takeaway from it was more the editor in chief and managing editor had a foreword to it where they talked about the experience of working with an AI driven law review. And they made their suggestions for, like, how do we make scholarship still relevant in a world where AI happens, and what sorts of safeguards do we need to have, as a scholarly journal when we talk about this sort of stuff. And it was interesting. A lot of the stuff you might expect. You should edit. You should have somebody who knows what they're doing involved. Yada yada yada. But the part that I kind of leaned in on was and I think they're coming from a good place, but I think they're wrong about it. Uh, they wanted to have a taxonomy that runs from no AI involvement to just letting the AI run hog wild with their prompt and then publishing it. And I don't know, like their taxonomy involves stuff like using it as a research assistant was on the lower end, whereas using it to draft substantial portions of the text on a higher end. And all I could think was, I'd be a lot more skeeved out by using it as a research assistant than having it draft text, depending on what the prompt is. I mean, if the prompt is like, hey, what's the answer to this? And it writes a bunch of text, yeah, like I would be worried about that. But if you are using it just to use like filler text for claims that are correct, in that case, I'd be way more comfortable with that than I would be with some of the research stuff turned hog wild. And so I don't know, like I feel like that's kind of the problem with any form of developing a taxonomy. And an analogy I make in the article is it's kind of like saying in 1996, you have to disclose how much you use the internet. And it's like, well, okay, but like eventually the internet's going to get involved in everything. And I think that's also true. Like, what happens when a situation comes up where your AI involvement is changes and is conditional? You write a prompt just seeking some research help, but it gives you a good summary paragraph, and then you put that in. Does that now move you to a different level? Like, I don't know. I thought it was well-meaning, but probably not something that's going to be realistic over the long term as this technology continues to develop so quickly.
Interesting when somebody's pointing out in the chat that the article refers to this research tool called explicit when it's
Yeah.
actually called illicit. So there you have it.
Oh, there we go.
Hallucination number one.
Probably, yeah. And that's probably not even smart AI. That was probably WordPress, not WordPress, but Word
Grammar.
doing its like grammar bullshit. Which one more
That's
reason to
true.
use WordPerfect out there, kids.
I mean, I think it is interesting though how there's this move right now to just regulate and classify and clarify and put rules around how AI can and should be used and it's regulating AI from a federal standpoint or whatever in terms of um I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people trying to come up with internal rules and internal regulations, like within their companies or within academia, or those. There's so much of a sense of trying to get a handle on this thing and trying to control it and trying to um, uh, control how other people use it. And I think that you're 100% right, Joe, that I mean, all of this like wrangling it and trying to like lasso it in and knock it down is going to just kind of disappear over time when it's just embedded in everything. And it just, it's a lot of hand wringing going on around it that is just sort of unnecessary. But I think it makes people feel more like they're controlling it and makes them feel a little less out of control. And also in the context of just the larger world right now, like we're all gonna soon there's gonna be like a nuclear bomb coming towards us, and none of this is gonna matter. But we should do a P doom thing today, for God's sake. We're definitely closer to that, like doomsday, but that's a different issue.
Oh, we don't want to spoil the parade tomorrow, so we won't. We don't want
Yeah.
to do that.
I mean, we did a piece about like a feature looking at just AI and legal scholarship in general, and as we published this a couple months ago. Not with ChatGPT though. It was written by one of our human reporters. Not that we have AI reporters, but yeah, it's just like so. It was interesting. I talked about I guess Andy Perlman did this early on where he drafted a journal article with that used ChatGPT where he admitted it and he put it in the notes and everything like that. And then I guess yeah they were talking about these Kansas folks and that they tried to actually submit a paper with ChatGPT as a co-author and it got dinged. So then they had to change it and put like they put a disclaimer that portions of this were drafted by blah blah blah. No, I mean, look, I mean, if they're using it to help enhance their research and help enhance their, what they would do, ordinarily, then I don't think there's anything nefarious about it. But I mean, if they're doing it to, as a crutch, and look, the thing with the thing about explicit or illicit or whatever like that, yeah, that's a failing of the technology but that's also a failing of this because I think don't they have people on staff that are supposed to line check every single citation? So yeah, it shouldn't have been drafted in the first place, but it also should have been caught.
Yeah, I didn't read the actual articles. I read that forward, or I tried to read it. It's part of part of the problem here is just that I still don't I don't know whoever what are law reviews articles for anymore? I don't who uses them and do judges even use them? I mean,
Yes.
Who
what are
even
they
who
what are
even
they
reads
for?
them?
So,
Who reads the
so,
damn things?
Yeah.
I didn't
so
read them
this is
when they were a thing.
So this is actually an interesting. This brings me to the part of my job where I don't talk about legal tech, but we had a bit recently. It's actually increasing the number of law reviews being cited in real court cases because as increasingly the courts want to change the law from something to something that's never actually existed before, they're increasingly not able to cite any precedent. So they're more citing these tailor made law review
Mm.
articles for the basis for these decisions. So when you see these, like Clarence Thomas does a lot of these, he'll write an opinion where like there's no like case. It's just a bunch of law review articles where somebody goes, imagine a world in which X happened, and he's like, well, I mean, look, it's in this Harvard Law Review.
Yeah, all right. I guess that's a fair point.
And
So,
actually, I mean, for my book that I'm working on, I actually cite more law review articles than traditional articles. So, but many law review articles are from like the 30s and 40s. So there's that too.
yeah, I mean, because I felt like the forward, with all due respect to the authors, it makes it so scholarly and formalistic. It's kind of what you were saying before, Nikki, about trying to lasso it in or corral it in or whatever Austin terminology is there. It just it, it's such a weird way to discuss the topic. I think, and then this whole idea of trying to set up this whole structure around it. It doesn't fit with the world we live in right now. I felt like I don't know.
Austin term. Are you saying that I'm spending too much time in
Lasso?
I'm starting to like sound like a Texan?
No. Um,
Trying to subtly promote, the Texas way of life. I don't know.
yeah.
So,
Get that conference coming up.
so a point that Joshua makes in the chat here is that law review articles are being used to train AI, which that brings me to why my PDoom score is 1,000,000, because that sounds like the worst thing in the world. If if AI is learning from Jonathan Turley, we are doomed, and we should just like fold it up right now.
All right. Well, we could do P-Doom. You want to do a P-Doom?
I mean, yeah, mine is high for that reason.
All right. Nikki, what's yours?
I forget, is it 1 to 10 or 1 to 100?
100 is, yeah, but I forget
100
which way is
overall.
bad. Which way is bad? Which way is good?
I
100,
think
the world's
100.
going
I
to
think
blow up.
100's bad. I think 100 is
100,
bad.
100
the
is bad.
world's ending in like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, well,
100 is bad.
the fact that the Middle East is now getting nuked, well, not nuked, but bombed, is not it's somewhat unsettling. I don't know if I'm the only one that finds that a little unsettling. So I'm gonna, that when waking up to that was unsettling. Forget everything else that's happened that's completely batshit crazy lately. I'm gonna go with probably the highest I've ever been, like an 88. I think I'm at about an 88 now. It's not good. Anyone
Who
else?
else?
Yeah, I'm gonna go 80 because like I feel like have you seen the movie Hot Shots? Like when at the beginning it's like you have these two guys holding missiles and they bump into each other and and the warheads hit each other and then they blow up. I have a feeling there's a better than even chance that that could happen at the parade this weekend, and like the missiles could accidentally hit each other and blow up, and it'll be because Pete Hegseth was too worried about you know looking at I don't know doing whatever than making sure that everything was safe for the parade. Um, then again, I am looking forward to the new Naked Gun movie coming out. They announced Spaceballs too, so I have something to live
Baseball.
for. Yeah, I have something to
Yeah.
look forward to. So I'll temper it a little bit, but yeah, it's pretty high.
98-year-old Mel Brooks is making a Spaceballs movie. It's fantastic.
All right. Steve, what about you?
As high as everybody else. I see nothing to lower the score.
Yeah, it's hard to find any silver lining anywhere out
It's
there.
impossible.
I mean, as Joe just mentioned, watching that senator get thrown to the floor for trying to ask a question, having the Marines invade Los Angeles, and a military
Shout
parade on our president's birthday, and
shout out, by the way, though, to all the Third Amendment scholars. You finally are going to get your moment. The Marines
they're
are going to
going to
be
have
there.
to like they're going to want to
I
be
mean,
put up somewhere.
they're sleeping on floors right now, so like they're gonna have to grab somebody's futon in Santa Monica, and that's gonna be a whole thing.
Yep. Adam cameras, watch out.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, well, I'm up there with all of you, so. But it is Friday the 13th too, so we don't have too much to worry
Yeah.
about.
Oh man.
All right. On that cheery note,
I'm sure there'll be
we do
another
have
Friday the 13th
we did
movie
have the
coming out
sun come
too.
out
So.
here, which hadn't happened for a while.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's another problem. The entire Northeast is covered with Canadian smoke. Thanks,
Yeah,
Canada.
yeah. Where's
Hey,
Julie when we need her?
let's not. I mean, look, I've developed a let's not make fun of Canada policy. Since they're gonna have to take me in as a refugee before this is all over. So we love Canada. Hopefully Edmonton can come back. That kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that does it. I see somebody mentioning they'll be at No Kings, and hopefully some of us will be too. And
See you guys
other,
in San Salvador next week.
yeah, yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. I just wanted to visit there, so what.
Always wanted to
Careful
go
what you
there,
wish
right?
for. Yeah.
Free vacation.
All right. I think that's it. We've bummed everybody out as much as possible, and also
You're welcome.
trash law reviews and whatever else. So time to wrap
Law
it up for
reviews,
this week.
surveys.
Surveys. Harvey.
Get
Um,
off my grass.
yeah, yeah. All right. All right. Well, we'll find something cheerier. We could do like a good news, happy news show next week or something. Or
Bold,
That'll take five.
It'll be
That'll
bold,
take
it'll
a
be the
couple of
bold
shortest. It'll
minutes.
be the
promise.
shortest show.
All
Be
right.
a short
Well,
show
Bold
next
promise.
week, folks.
short show. All right. Okay.
All right.
Oh yeah, our PR tips for stars. We can do that one. All right. See you all next week. Thanks for showing up
Come on.
today. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Bye, all.